Go. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the In Transition podcast. I am so happy to be here again this week with another amazing guest, Brigitte Bojkowszky, a brand strategist, overall brilliant career pivoter. This is going to be the conversation we have today. I looked at basically her resume and what she wanted to talk about, and she has lived a life full of what I would call those career pivots, and not always ones that followed a linear path like many of us try to follow in our careers. We think once we decide on a career, we're going down that path and we're sticking to it, even though we may be called in other directions. But before we have this really powerful conversation, I want to tell you a little bit about Bridgette. She is the founder of BridgetBrands, and a global and personal brand identity strategist, as I mentioned, with a career spanning over 23 years of teaching global marketing management and branding at universities across the globe, and extensive experience in the corporate world. She possesses a treasure trove of knowledge and expertise we will tap into today, all with a passion for brand excellence. Bridgette guides entrepreneurs and organizations toward their brand's radiant future. Her mission is to craft captivating brand identities that radiate beauty, brilliance, and authenticity, ultimately attracting the clients and recognition of her clients truly deserve. Amazing, Bridgette. Welcome. So excited to have this conversation.
Hello, Laura. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure being here.
Always a pleasure to have these conversations. And as I was mentioning before we hit record today, I often speak to many women about their career, especially women that have spent a lot of time in the corporate world and have felt a pull to leave, maybe because it doesn't align with where they're at, or their values anymore, or they just want to create bigger impact in the world, which sounds like a path you have followed for the course of your career. So there's a few things I think we're going to talk about today around pivoting and also trusting yourself in the pivot, right? Because that's something I also hear a lot of women talk about, that I don't know if I can do it. There's so much safety and security in staying in the corporate world. Even though I have this itch to go do something else to create impact, I'm just going to stay. So I'd love to start at the beginning. You started your career in the corporate world. What itch took place when you were in corporate that kind of had you thinking, this may not be it for me?
All right. Actually, it started much earlier. It was in the corporate world, like in a business, in a company, but I was not a corporate at that time.
Okay.
My life, my work life began in the skies. So I was a flight attendant it was my first job. So I served as a head flight attendant. Pretty much like after 2 years, I become promoted, and yeah, I was head of flight attendants on a flight. So I always wanted to become that. This was my child's dream job and my career. I wanted to become a flight attendant, so I did it. So I went for it, and it was beautiful. I was, cultivating leadership skills then, and also get a deep understanding of diverse cultures, and especially of creating these exceptional and captivating experiences for passengers on board.
Mm-hmm.
And it taught me to always strive for excellence. That was the beginning of my career as an employee. And I felt pretty much intellectually unchallenged after 3 years. I knew I cannot leave now because I don't have the money together to study in order to, get a good corporate job and become a manager, a leader, an executive, and so on.
Yep.
And then so I stayed for 5 years, and then I thought, okay, I could now, jump ship and start as a student, because I really was intellectually not challenged. There was everything I could reach, I reached, but there was this glass ceiling for everyone who has not studied. And when you want to have a corporate career, then you need to have a university degree. That's how it is. So yeah, I left, even though it was great. I learned a lot, especially how to host, how to serve people, and also understanding the global world. So that really helped. And then I studied international marketing and management and business education. So I became also a certified teacher, and that helped me also to teach more than 23 years at universities around the world.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I entered, after my master's degree, I entered the corporate world, and I was in several companies. And the last company I was before, yeah, and then I did my PhD. So, I pivoted so often that sometimes what did I do first and second? And so it's kind of, after a while, this is 25 years ago. And so you mix up things. And yeah, then I did my PhD in international marketing and management. And then I worked for different companies. And the last position I had before the financial crisis in 2008 was the head of market research with the international real estate development company. But this company went bankrupt. And with that bankruptcy, interestingly, I also lost my identity, because I identified myself so much with my job, with my standing, as a head and having responsibilities. And I was working so much that I didn't realize I'm a human being as well. And I have a private life. And what happens if the company is not existing anymore? So I also disappeared somehow. And in that moment, I realized the importance of a personal brand. You know who you are. And once you know and own who you are, then it doesn't matter what happens. Yeah, because you know what you can bring to the table. You know where you are, who you are, and hopefully can craft a new vision where you want to go and what you want to become. So that became very obvious in that transition. I transformed into something new. That was one of my major, I would say, eurekas I had on my personal journey. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but it was already a pivoting. There happened already certain pivotings before I became corporate, and then professor, and then starting my own business. So
Yeah. I'm like,
that's
there's so much in there that I'm like, oh, which path do we want to go down? Because everyone listening, I'm like, you heard that from flight attendant to student, continuing to be a student. I'm curious, as you were a student, what were you doing? Were you doing anything work-wise other than studying?
no. I got some subsidies from the government, but under certain I had to fulfill a certain requirement that I will study below minimum time.
Mm,
So for me, it was, if I had another job at the same time, I wouldn't be able to manage that, because I also did this certification to become a teacher. So my whole study was one semester longer than any other studies. It was an extra long study. And I studied international marketing and management and business education. So I saved a lot. I mean, the money that I had, I was never the great spender. So I always saved money to have money on the side for irregularities. And one of my irregularities was, yeah, stopping and
stopping
stopping flying,
and
like
studying.
landing for good. Yeah. And then studying. But I also thought about, there were two avenues I could have gone: becoming a pilot or studying. I
Oh,
didn't have enough money for the private, for the PP, for the private, for the pilot license. So then somehow, yeah, I went into studying, and that was kind of a no-brainer decision at the end of the day. Yeah.
yeah. I was going to ask because I feel like when people get to a point where they're not satisfied in their career, not challenged, which kind of sounds like where you were at. Like, this is, I can only go so far here. I've had that happen multiple times in my career where it's like I'm always looking to make an impact or to learn more or to grow. And you hit that ceiling, like you said, where you're like, I can't, I can't go any further here. I can't have any more impact. So what's next? I feel like a lot of women in particular, because I feel like we're more squiggly than most men when it comes to our careers because we follow a feeling, might be a
Yeah.
gut feeling, or like, I don't know, this is not where I'm supposed to be. But how do you, well, in your experience, would say when you were trying to decide what were you looking at? I mean, you said you were looking at maybe becoming a pilot, which is something
Yeah.
totally different than the path you went. What was going through your mind at that point?
I mean, I love flying. I always wanted to rather be in the cockpit than in the cabin. For me, this was like, oh my God, how can you keep an airplane in the air or get it off the
Mhm.
ground and then land it again? So this was always exciting for me. And I mean, I like to provide exceptional experiences, but I'm also I like flying and you know, being capable of doing so would really have been a wonderful challenge for me and something to go for. Maybe I still do it, I don't know. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, it's a feeling and a lot of thinking. And I kind of did, there is a waiting going on. So what do I want from the deepest of my heart and what makes sense? So I try to
Mm.
bring both of that together. And at the end of the day, what I've realized once I made a rational decision, and that was a failure, that was a mistake in my life. Rational decisions usually are make sense in the short term, but
Mhm.
they have no long-term sustainability. It's
Ooh.
something that gets you over something. Maybe you have, you know, your finances are rather short and you need to do something. So you make a rational decision to overcome that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a long-term effect or it doesn't make you happy long-term. So long-term is something that brings you joy and a decision that comes fully from your heart, from your soul, and is not up to a rational decision.
Mm.
So that's what I've realized in the many years I'm on this earth, that go for what you feel, what your instinct tells you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean to leave out any rationality or any calculation or anything that you do with your mind thinking and so on. But if you have several choices and you need to choose, everything being equal, where does your heart go?
Mm. Such a
So
powerful
that's,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's decision tree kind of, you have rational and emotional and
Mhm.
kind of a weighting system in place, and then
Yep.
do a short list of 3 to 5 and then kind of prune it down. And in the end, it needs where your heart
Mm.
points you. And that's the right decision to go. Even though, and I also, for me, I always wanted to become an entrepreneur. And I finally am one. But the journey as an entrepreneur is a roller coaster with
Oh.
everything, financial constraints. And then this doesn't
Mhm.
work. Rejection, there's a rejection, this works, okay, this is not
Yep.
sustainable. So until you figure out where is it, you would have given up already several times on this journey. But when you just go on a recess and take your time, sit back, relax,
Mm.
then you know what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the worst thing that you can do is just give up and settle with something that you feel like it's good enough,
Mhm.
but it's full of pain. If you're
Ah.
frustrated, if you are, is this my life? Is this going to be until the rest of until I die? And
Yeah.
doing something you don't like, you maybe even hate,
Ugh.
want to settle with that.
Yep.
And there is a lot of people out there, they do so. They are frustrated, they're depressed, they are, and so is your inner circle and your friends. People will walk away. You will fight with your children. You might get a divorce. Whatever, yeah. You become addictive in food or in drinking or in shopping, or you're just not happy with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think then you really need to go on this inner discovery. Go
Oh,
on
yeah.
a discovery journey and figure out what is in there. What do you really want? What do you, I mean, we are very much aware of what we don't want. But the thing is,
Yes.
you're doing when you don't want it. Are you
All the
stop?
time.
It's I don't want that, but still you're
But I'm
doing
doing
it.
it.
Yeah, I don't want such a guy. Still, you invite such a guy into your life. So
Yep.
why don't you just stop it and just, I know it's an easy word, but reflect and get clear of what is your next step in order not to do that. Maybe let go in gratitude and say, thank you. It's enough. I have learned it,
Yep.
but now there is something new. Yeah, I know it's not easy, but
No.
we have to you continue yeah, continue reframing from negative into positive, from negative into positive. It's hard work. Sometimes you
Yep.
fail and you call it a day, but there's another day and you can do it again. And yeah.
And it's one of those things you often keep doing once you start the work, which is why I'm so passionate about the work I do with women in the coaching realm, because you're, as you were speaking, I'm literally having like a visceral reaction because I was like, oh my gosh, I've been in all of those places where I'm like, everything just feels misaligned. My career, my relationship, and being so stuck in that for like a decade, not
Mhm.
doing anything to change it. And to your point, we have to start becoming aware of the cycles we keep ourselves stuck in and not doing the work, the inner work, which is sometimes painful. Also, something you said, it's not easy. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it, right? But getting really real with yourself and getting back in touch with who am I and what do I actually want? What are you trying to attract into your life from a career perspective or a relationship perspective? Just life
Exactly.
in general.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I love the frame you just gave us of that short term logical decision. I go logical in your head decision, which is where most people get stuck. And we don't think of it in terms of like, yeah, maybe there's a short term gain of going with what seems logical or rational. But in the end, it kind of ends up backfiring a lot of time because we haven't tapped into the feeling side, the long term consequence of that decision.
Mhm.
We lean on safety and security. Again, what are the things I know? And I always talk to women about, in my mind, the ideal scenario for work is something that you feel really competent doing. Like, I really am good at this, because we always feel good when we're doing something that either comes naturally or that we're just not strong at. And then also the other intersection we forget about, which is the one you spoke to in terms of leaning into your heart, is what lights me up. Because it's easy to find the what am I good at a lot of time and feel completely empty in that when you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
And
no,
what like, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
what lights me up?
And as you say, it's we really have to, or where we agree on, do this inner work and figure out what we really want. And it helps us also when we know what we want and what we enjoy, to make more intentional decisions. And that has nothing to do with being self-centered, but because what I think of, I have experienced, if I go for what I want, then other people would say, she's just thinking of herself and she doesn't care about others. But if you're not going for what we want, for what we love, what we do with joy, then we are people pleasing and we are the ones that suffer because we take the back seat. We put others into the light, or shine light on and dim ourselves.
Mhm.
But that is not healthy at all. If we are in our best possible version with what we are capable, as you say, and what we enjoy doing, we inspire others as well. So there is only a win-win situation. It doesn't mean in order to make others big and strong to dim our lights. That never will work. But we still are in this, a lot of people and a lot of women are in this default situation
Yeah.
or mindset. Let's say mindset, yeah, because it's a mindset. It's a lot of people are grown up with that. I was grown up with that, playing
Yeah.
sport, and don't speak up. Nobody's interested in what you have to say. Others know much better, you know.
Yep.
Oh, do that, don't do that. And it was like, okay, am I allowed to live? Am I allowed to be visible at all?
Ooh.
So I was really, I was always struggling with that. I had an inner conflict. Yeah, because I thought, why am I not allowed to put myself out there like everyone else? So this is part of my, it's my theme. This is
Yeah.
my, that's my, where I need to put emphasis on. Yeah, it's my topic. It's my life topic.
I love that. We all have one too. And
Yeah.
it's interesting when you start to do some of this inner work, like you're mentioning, you start to recognize patterns that have repeated throughout a lot of your life. I know for me, as you're talking about, you know, not using your voice or feeling like you need to kind of be in the background of your own life or you need to please everyone else first. That was me to a T for most of my life, living in the shadow of someone else or feeling like, my life is to support other people, which
Yeah.
sounds like a noble cause. And a lot of women get stuck in that. Like, I am in a life of service. That gives me joy. But I'm like, does it in the frame you're living it out in your life? Yes, women are nurturers and we like to serve people and take care of people. But at what point does serving other people get you sabotaging yourself, where you give up parts of yourself?
Yeah.
And that was my story for so long. It was like, who have I even become? I don't recognize this person.
Yeah. It's, you have become the identity of others define you as you have to be. And you gave up your own one. So it's time to discover what your real identity is, what you want to present to the world, how you want to be perceived.
Mhm.
And that is where vulnerability comes in and authenticity comes in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, because what I've also realized, there were a lot of people in my life that actually do not support me.
Mm.
And it's nothing where I was able to really grow and become who I really am or what I want to become. Yeah, we are always in the becoming, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also realizing that, I mean, it's painful because you let go of certain friendships, of you're not meeting certain people in your life anymore, but you're opening up to receive
Yep.
new people in your life and people that are on the same journey or a little bit ahead of you or are in the same mindset. You have different communication topics that you are, discussing about. So
Mhm.
yeah, that is part of transitioning. I think once you leave a certain circle or shed an identity, you go into nothingness because you need to somehow redefine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are pushing the reset button and make kind of a situation analysis of who are you right now? Not what you were yesterday, but what is it that is you with all the experiences and capabilities, with all that who you are? And then figure out, okay, where do I want to be? What is my vision, my overall vision? And then maybe for certain projects, have these smaller visions and then try to figure out how to get there, have a strategy, have a roadmap, a plan, get clarity. I think that that's what it is. And sometimes we don't see it, but we might just see the next day. So do the little steps. And I think once we are taking action into the unknown, the path will unfold itself.
Trust.
Yeah, because just think about there is fog and you are on the freeway. You see maybe, I don't know how far you see. We say like 200 meters, like
Ahead of you.
yeah. So you don't see far, right? But you still have to drive. So you drive kind of from one waypoint to the next waypoint until you see the next part of what's coming. So that's how what life is. You just go as far you can see at the moment and making decisions based on who you are and what you values and what the values are you live by. And I think it also comes down to the value set that we decide on.
Yeah.
The value set, the 3 to 5 core values that you believe makes a good and healthy life for yourself and for the ones surrounded by you.
Yeah. Such a good point. And all those little steps we take, even when we can only see 200 meters ahead of us, that's all building forward momentum.
Yeah.
And that tends to just multiply. That's why I always tell women too, I was like, just getting to that point where you can trust yourself to take even that small step. It's so much bigger than you think it's going to be, like the downstream effect of that.
Exactly.
Because if you don't, you just stay stuck.
Yeah.
And we could spin our wheels for years.
Yeah. And it builds this confidence. With every step that we are bravely taken every day, or whatever, we build confidence because we have mastered it. We have done it. We are one step further. And it becomes easier on the way. That doesn't mean that the challenges become easier or less difficult. But we are building up our strength like a muscle to be able to conquer the next.
Yes,
right?
you're more prepared.
We're more prepared.
Definitely more prepared. And I always envision life or picture life more like a journey, which it is, and we're constantly evolving. And I think we have to allow ourselves the permission for that process to occur too, knowing nothing is static. Like we're changing all the time. Even when you start following those nudges, like you have your entire career, like you've mentioned, you might get to a point where you're like, okay, this has been good to this point, but there's something else, or I want to start moving in another direction now. And maybe that vision has always been there, like you've mentioned, always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it didn't just happen overnight. We're like, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. And I think that's the other kind of misnomer in this whole thing of like jumping from corporate to entrepreneurship is people think like it's this big event that happens and overnight you're like, I'm no longer in corporate, I'm an entrepreneur. And that scares people because they're like, that's a lot. And to your point, it's not easy being an entrepreneur. And for a lot of us, it wasn't like I made a decision and it's happening. Like there was a process, and it is an ongoing one that you're evolving as an entrepreneur too, and figuring out, is this the lane I want to be in? This is calling to me now. So talk to me a little bit about that part of your journey. You talked to us about, she was a flight attendant, she was a student, went into corporate, was a teacher. Like you shifted all these times, and you're like, what was the moment that you're like, you know what, I'm ready for entrepreneurship? And what did that transition look like?
Into entrepreneurship, you mean? That's now.
Yep.
There's so many in
Yeah, the one into entrepreneurship, because as you mentioned, it was a journey.
I mean, on this journey, there were some transitions. I was the one who initiated it, quitting my job, doing this, studying, and so on. When it comes to going into entrepreneurship, that was an interesting story because I was a non-tenure tech professor. That means I did not have a permanent position. So as a teaching professor, I had this non-tenure track, means my contract terminated end of February 2020.
Mm.
And it was not, you could not prolong it. I did some sideline teaching after that, but the contract just ended. It was like that. That's politics here. And I had no safety net. So I either finding another job or going for my own thing and starting my own entrepreneurial journey, which I always wanted. But I started getting clients, doing workshops for them already on a side. But when COVID rolled in the next month, everything changed. There was not going to companies and doing workshops for them because
Nope.
we became to a stand. Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
standstill. So I started everything shifting online, creating online courses for the university, and then starting my own online courses and my own challenges online, and then one-on-one. But it was a trial and error because everything was new. Zoom was pretty much new. Nobody knew exactly how do we use that. And I was kind of thrown into this whole thing, into a pool of sharks. And so
Mm-hmm.
now swim. Do you know how to do it? No. So
No, just going.
yeah. So it was just a constant learning. But today I had a conversation with a friend and I told her, listen, I haven't learned that much that I have learned in the 3.5 years. I mean, I haven't learned that much. I cannot remember in such a short time early in my life. So this was really a very concentrated learning of different skills and capabilities and of other things that I need as an entrepreneur to live what I am. And am a brand identity strategist or a person who helps companies get their branding right and craft a strong brand. So yeah, it was, I think once you are swimming in the pool of sharks, it's all about what's next, how can I do this? There is not much thinking, can I do that? You have no time for thinking about that. Yeah, you
Yep.
just go with the flow and try to make sense, use your common sense and go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone feels like they need to have a plan. And that may have been the old way of entrepreneurship. That's what we all think. Like, I need to have a business plan. I need to have all my ducks in a row. And to a certain degree, like, yes, I think a lot of us think about those things. We may not formalize them a lot of the time. We're just like, I have this idea, might start testing the waters a little bit and seeing, do I have something here? But I feel like a lot of that happens, like you said, by trial and error, putting yourself out there,
Yeah.
seeing if you're on to something. What was
Yeah.
that like for you in the beginning?
I think this was an exceptional time because it was COVID. COVID started. So
Yep.
you cannot compare that with any other time. Now it's again more relaxed than it was during COVID. So it's like before, you have more time. It's not so, it's like we are not living under the threat of the world is collapsing right now and we need to die. So it's relaxed. It's just we are going pretty much back to a new normality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was like I felt like in a tumbler. Uh, I did not really know what I was doing at the moment. I just tried to make sense of things and used my intuition and my expertise and my know-how and put things together because I was under pressure. There was time pressure. It was an exceptional time. Um, if 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 I were to do it now, I mean, stay as long as you can, if that is even possible, with your company and build your business on the side. Yeah, because you still have this financial freedom and you can pay your bills unless you are kind of sitting on the streets because the company went bankrupt. Okay, there's another situation. But if you have this liberty, then do so. Build it up until you feel safe enough. If you ever feel like that, I don't know. Yeah.
Yep.
But you have to make a decision anyway, sooner or later, if you really want to go for that.
Yep.
And reaching out to people who are offering certain services who can help you, or being part of a network like yours, part of a group, having accountability partner, having people that lift you up when you don't know where to go. I would not necessarily ask family members or parents or people who cannot give you an answer to a solution that they never went through or haven't gone before. This is impossible. How should they know? Because parents always want you safe. So they will suggest you doing something that is safe, but that doesn't mean that makes you happy.
This is true. And I always think about that. That is the problem if your network is primarily composed of family and friends, because I feel like you fall on one end of the spectrum with either of those groups, where you have your just like constant cheerleaders. Nothing you do is ever wrong. They're there to support you. They believe in you all the way. And yeah, we need some form of that, but there's no like critical feedback or anything that's really valuable in that, because at that stage, that's kind of what you're looking for. It's what I call like the loving critic.
Yeah.
And that's the power of community, right? Where you can have that accountability and you can have those resources and those other people to tap into that will give you the real feedback or give you something to work with. Family is going to cheerlead you along, and a lot of your friends will too. Or you have the complete opposite of that, where they never believe in anything you're doing, or they're constantly criticizing and they don't believe. So then you're listening to that. What do you think you're doing? Nothing. You feel defeated before you even start.
Exactly. So I think it's good to have a mentor, for example. That would be a really good alternative. But at the end of the day, nobody can make your decisions. So you can listen to all of that, think about it, reflect on it, and then take out what feels the right thing for you, what makes sense for you. What is it, what you want to go forward? Maybe it's none of their suggestions. Maybe it's just what you feel is right for you. Then go for that. Yeah. But sometimes it's not so easy as we suggest or as we visualize, because of certain external factors or something that is holding us back. Certain limiting beliefs that we also need to look at and turn into empowering beliefs. So I really suggest going on a discovery journey with yourself, getting feedbacks from others, how they see you, and then look at what you want to take, what you want to incorporate. But they also see a lot of blind spots that we are not seeing, certain strengths we never thought of that we have. So it's good to do so and have this constructive feedback from others. I also like, to a certain extent, critical feedback, because they really face you with reality. It's like a shock. And then you're like, oh my God, is that true? Am I really like this? Or because then you sleep on it, and the next day you still think on it. And there's certain truths to it, I would say. But this also happens for you, not against you at the end of the day.
Well,
So
being able to separate yourself from it feeling like a personal attack, especially if you're around the right people that are really doing it, like I said, out of that kind of loving critique, like, because I want the best for you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, or this is what you really need to know, or have you thought about this? Because I think we get into spaces, and I've seen this amongst women in particular, where especially the type of women I attract, and even the woman that I am, like we are cheerleaders for other women. We want to see other women win. And sometimes we can get in that mode of almost placating. Like we don't give the critical feedback or the constructive feedback because we're like, no, you're amazing. You've got this. And you go into cheerleading mode rather than stepping back and going, you know what? The loving, kind thing to do here, if we see something that could be holding them back or that doesn't feel aligned, would be to tell them, this is what I see. And this is
Yeah.
coming from a space of, I really, truly want to see you win. I want to see you achieve the things you're trying to, and giving them perspective. Because at the end of the day, I think that's been the gift to me from all the women that I've interacted with, is like getting that feedback and being receptive to it, being like, no, like don't hold back. If there's something I need to know or you feel like I should, I want to know, because then I have the choice. Is this something I want to implement? Is this true? Does this align? Does this solve a problem I'm having in my business? It's all worthwhile to me. But again, it's like coming to that headspace of like, people aren't out to get me. Especially the people I choose to have in my network, like they're here to support me and I respect what they're saying, and being open to, there might be a different way to do this, or maybe I hadn't thought about that. I love that. And I always joke, I love being wrong. So I'm always
Yeah.
like, tell me. Because I was like, that just is like more wisdom, more knowledge that I add to my arsenal, where I'm like, oh, that was a blind spot. Or I didn't see that. I had that happen to me yesterday on a call with another community builder of just like reducing friction. I was like, I hadn't thought about that. There is so much power in hearing different perspectives and having the conversations.
Yeah. I
How,
mean, sorry. What you're talking about is exactly what actually should happen in a safe space. Yeah, where people lift each other, where you have this people giving you constructive feedback and challenge you. Because I come from a world, especially the airline industry, where people want to see you in pain, or like, okay, she's leaving now, haha, she will never be able to, to pass the exam, and you will see she will be coming back because she's not able to do so. This kind of, I'm coming from such an environment where it's like you don't want to put yourself out there, and so I'm happy that we are now able to create space and networks for people to feel safe and to be who they are, to be authentically true to themselves, kind of, where you are vulnerable, where you can open up, where you can be wrong. I can be wrong. People are not happy because you're wrong, or just making fun of it. It's just because they can show you another way of how to be successful, of how to solve that problem. Yeah?
yeah,
So integrating new perspective to making something even better than it was before.
exactly. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
I think that where I'd like to land this conversation is around what you're currently doing in your professional life, which is helping people with their branding. Because I feel
Mhm.
like if you're someone who's been on this squiggly journey, maybe you're considering entrepreneurship, maybe you're trying to pivot in a different role in your corporate career. To Bridgette's point, your personal brand says a lot. What you stand for, how you show up in the world, and really tapping into that authenticity that Bridgette was just speaking of, being who you are, not having to pretend, not having to wear the mask that you might have been wearing your entire career and feeling very conflicted about it. Talk about how people can start to really explore their personal brand, whether in the context of entrepreneurship, if that's something they're considering, or even as a corporate professional.
Yeah. When we talk about personal branding or building a personal brand, it's nothing that we build and that's it. And as you said before, we always evolve over time, and so is our personal brand. It's an ongoing process of refinement,
Mhm.
and it involves this personal growth, yeah, that we are on the way if we have a growth mindset, usually. And we are adapting to the changes in the industry. We are getting feedback from the audience and from others. So we incorporate that. So we are growing from everything that we are doing, everything we learn. So it's an ongoing process. It's evolving over time.
Mhm.
And personal branding doesn't start with personal branding. There is something before. It's shifting mindset. So we
Mm.
have to get into the right mindset. So if we want to embark on an entrepreneurial journey from a corporate into entrepreneurship, then we need to shift the mindset into a business owner's mindset. And that means having a clear vision, having a mission. How do we get there? The higher purpose. And um, creating, crafting, developing, defining a value set that we want to live by and breathe every day. That's important because it helps us make this intentional decision. And then we build the personal brand. And it's personal branding in a sense is really important for entrepreneurs. And it comes first before you even brand your company, because your personal brand is the North Star. It's the guiding light for your company. So you need to know who you are first, and that shines through your company brand. So personal branding means developing a persona of who you are right now and then what you want to become. It's about your brand style. It's about your standards. It's about everything who you are, getting the feedback from others. It's about how can we elevate our presence as a personal.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to
So
pause. I have to pause you right there before you continue because I want to draw attention to everyone that's listening. The fact that she did not mention having photos or a logo or all the things that people immediately assume are a personal brand.
that comes later.
They
Yeah.
skip all the stuff you just said, the knowing, the why, the mission, because that all translates to
Yeah.
that physical brand you see out in the world, right?
Exactly. So you need to lay the groundwork for everything you express through a name, a logo, a tagline, your colors. When you know what a color means and why this color represents you out there on a website, on social media, in your email, then you connect with the people, because a brand needs to make someone feel. And that's what it is about. And that's why I need to do this pre-work, which actually is not a pre-work.
It
Branding
is the
starts
work.
with mindset. Branding starts with mindset. So
Yep.
it's part of the whole story. Yeah? So you need to have the right mindset, build your personal brand that shines through your company brand, and shines through your company brand in terms of make it intangible through your logo, your name, all these so-called brand elements that you kind of try to present yourself to the world.
Yeah.
It's really what you're best at, where your sweet spot is, and that needs to communicate it. And that goes into your visual branding.
Yeah. I think everyone gets really caught up in visual branding as what personal branding means. And I was like, that's just one component. There's a lot of exploration before you get to like physical branding and what that's going to look like. And to your point, it may evolve over time. What
Exactly.
resonates today, who you are today, is going to evolve, how that translates to your brand and what people see. It's allowed to change.
And it has to change,
Mhm.
because as I said before, all these external factors, the environment is changing, people are changing, the industry is changing, consumer behavior is changing, the world is changing at all, and so you are changing. Yeah. So for
Mhm.
example, my core values pretty much remain the same, but the meaning changes. Yeah,
Mm,
from the beauty, from the outer beauty, you know, as a flight attendant and so on, you always represent the company, you know, with who you are as a person.
yeah.
And then also nowadays, it's more from the inside. Yeah. What do I have to give? What strength is so beautiful that I need to bring it to the world? And what is so brilliant, that's my second, the brilliance of doing something, of a certain process that only you can with you as a person, with the human being blended in there. So that's your uniqueness. And nowadays, and I have to say, in the face of AI, it's the human factor that counts. It's how you make others feel. Yeah. I had a conversation the other day with someone from the automobile industry. So it's a very tech savvy, tech nerdy kind of business. It's all about technical stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but they all build cars. It's pretty much the same. But how do you make someone go for you? It's the people who sell the car. It's the people who, you know, make the brand shine in such a way that you feel something.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you go for an iPhone that is double the price of something else that might have better features? You still go for it. It's an emotional attachment you have, and you purchase the one that costs $1,200. Yeah, instead of the one of 800. Why would you spend $400 more? Because you feel something. There is something you want to have that.
Yeah.
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 That's what branding is. You want to make someone feel, and that's also through people, and especially as a solopreneur.
Yeah.
It's you as a you're a human being, you as a person.
Yeah. And I think there's a whole other conversation we could have there that people may be curious about that are going into solopreneurship, because this is something I even questioned, like whether I wanted to build a brand that was centered on me or something that wasn't.
Mhm.
Because I think that's a question a lot of solopreneurs have, and maybe we could save that for another time, but because it is a consideration. Am I marketing me, the person, or am I building a brand with me behind it?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain factors to consider. It's strategic planning and thinking.
Mhm.
So that's why you need a vision. Is this something where you as a person always be in the forefront? Do you always play a role? Or is it something that can live without you being a central factor in the brand? And
Mhm.
is it something that serves a certain industry, or is that something that can be extended across categories, across industry, across borders into other countries? So
Mhm.
you have to have a more holistic thinking. Yeah, but nevertheless, my name is registered as a trade name. It's Dr. Bojkowszky Consulting, but this is not a brand name that you go out with that people, I hear it one time and I remember and I know how to write it and to spell
Yep.
it. So I could not use that. I needed something else. And that's why I came up with BridgetBrands, because of my first name and brands. I'm branding, I'm in branding. So there's a lot of stories to tell. So
Yep.
you need to think from a customer's perspective. You put yourself into the shoes of a potential client and where you want to go with the brand and what kind of audience you want to serve with your brand. Yeah. You want to stick to one specific category, one specific niche forever, then maybe you go with your name, you know, where you
Mhm.
are the one that is in the forefront of bringing the service. But if there's something that can change and you add up more categories under the umbrella of that brand,
Yeah.
then you have to be careful. Yeah, but you
Yeah.
still can come up with sub brands. Yeah, but this is another story that goes into branding strategies and branding hierarchies and
Yes.
um, yeah, but it's fun too. I love that topic.
Yeah. I was like, for anyone listening and wanting to explore, these are the conversations to have with Bridget. And reach out and have them. I think briefly, I'd love to know for those that are like, nope, not going to be an entrepreneur, that's not in my future, but I am kind of considering how personal branding impacts me in my corporate role. How different is it approaching it from that headspace of I'm trying to position myself in a corporation?
Yeah. So when it comes to positioning yourself in a corporation, it's also about personal branding, and it's about leadership branding within the context of an organization, and it's about leveraging your executive presence. And there is other factors that come into play, how to especially own the presence in a room, when we think about, there's almost 80% of women that suffer from imposter syndrome of women executive level. There is something we can do. So it's also about mindset. It's also about building your personal brand. It's also about where do I want to go? What is my vision within the context of the organization? So it's not your company that you try to shine through, but it's within the corporation that you create this presence that you deserve.
Yeah.
In the context of that. So it means it's more the alignment of your own personal values with the values the organization wants to live as a unified set of values going forward, because it's all about what you bring to the table within the context of the organization.
Yeah, that's a great perspective.
It's more, I help these executives or managers to own their executive presence.
Yeah. So they can elevate, I'm sure,
Yeah.
and get into maybe the roles they want to be in. So
So
powerful.
be helping them to refine their communication skills, enhance their leadership style, and also, increase their confidence, and also own the authority in every interaction.
All powerful things.
Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, I would love to know, Bridgette, if you have any words of wisdom you want to leave the listeners with, whether it be in the realm of following your intuition on your squiggly career path or branding, what do you want to leave people with?
That branding starts with mindset and not with a logo. And I think you should also think about, when you want to become an entrepreneur, to start branding early, because no matter what, either you define who you are and present that to the world, or other people define you and brand you. So you have the choice. Yeah.
You have the choice. You heard it. And where would you tell people to start if they're very early on in establishing their personal brand?
They start with having a vision, creating a mission, define your value set, and then start building your personal brand. And it's hard to do it yourself, yeah, but I think you either have someone who helps you, an expert doing that, accountability partners, a mentor, but someone who really knows how to do that. There's also a lot of literature out there, a lot of podcasts out there, but I think if you really want to get serious, then you should have someone who is guiding you through that process.
Yeah, it's always great to have someone that knows more than you do.
Exactly. It's faster, and it's more intentional. Yeah, it's really we having this goal, and that's how we get there. And especially because it's not an easy undertaking. It takes effort, and it's always hard to look at yourself and follow through.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because you say, let's procrastinate. Let's do it tomorrow,
procrastination.
next week or so. Yeah. No, you need someone who is challenging you, who is lifting you up, and it's also more fun. Yeah.
A lot more fun. So if women want to connect with you, work with you, explore more of what you're up to and what you offer, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is BridgetBrands.com, or I am very interactive on LinkedIn, but you can also find me on the Bridget Brands on Instagram. Yeah, that's where I am. And I also have a YouTube channel, I also have a podcast where I had you
Mhm.
recently on.
Yep. Can hear me on hers. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, Bridget. I'm going to drop all of her links, her social links, her website in the show notes. So feel free to connect with her. She has a wealth of knowledge on personal branding and just, I feel like intuition and following your path, because it can feel lonely and isolating when you feel like you're crazy and not following a linear path. So I love that. If you're an entrepreneur who's traveled the squiggly road like we have, it's always good connecting with other professionals that share that same kind of journey. So I appreciate you taking the time, Bridget. It's been so much fun. Hopefully you'll come back and we can dive into another topic, but it's been super fun. Appreciate your time. And for everyone listening, I hope you took many nuggets from this conversation as you navigate either your personal brand or your squiggly career journey, and feel empowered to really get intentional.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. See
Thanks a
you all
lot.
next week. All right. Bye.